Hello, my name is Léa Barouche. I am a dual citizen, half French, half American, and I grew up in France with my mother, while my father lives in the United States. He's based in New York City. So, and I was a child, I used to visit my family, my father's family in New York City for 2 months or 1 month. And then I decided after high school, I decided to come to college in the United States. Mostly because I wanted to get out of France and experience something different. I wanted to have the American campus experience. That's why I chose Geneseo, upstate New York, like a small campus. I thought it would be the true American experience.
Hello, my name is Kyujin Kim, and I am from South Korea. I believe I'm pretty international because I lived overseas for over half of my life. First, I was born in Korea, then moved to England for 4 years, then moved back to Korea, and for my high school life, I was in Abu Dhabi, and now I chose to I chose America for my university.
My name is Sucheta Wakwela, and I grew up in Sri Lanka. I identify myself as a Sri Lankan, and I'm an international student in Geneseo. I was born in Sri Lanka, and I lived there till I was 3 years old, and my father got a job in Bangladesh, which is right next to India, and we moved there when I was 3. And when I had first started speaking, my mom taught me to speak English as my first language. And I stayed there with my family till I graduated high school in an American curriculum in Bangladesh, which is run by a bunch of Americans that came to help educate people there. And when I decided to when I graduated, my guidance counselor recommended me to come to the States to finish my education and get a college degree in psychology. And
Hi, my name is Katomi Terakawa, and I am a Japanese international student. I came from Tokyo, but I was born and raised in Sri Lanka. I left Sri Lanka when I was 12 and moved back because of the civil war they had. And in Sri Lanka, we were taught in the British system, but in Japan, when you go to international school, they teach you in an American system. So I had to adjust to that, which was kind of difficult. But that is what led me to Geneseo. Since I only started learning Japanese when I was 12, I didn't know Japanese too well to go to a university in Japan, so I thought it was better to come to America, and Geneseo seemed like the best fit for me, so here I am.
Well, it wasn't that hard for me to fit into the Geneseo community because the American people, American students here, and the professors, they seem to understand like the different cultural aspects among from the international students, and also since I was speaking English for more than half of my life, it wasn't a big deal to communicate in English with other students. Another thing that it wasn't that hard for me is because I also went to American International School when I was in Abu Dhabi for my high school, and since I experienced like part of the American educational system, it just felt like a flow from. It wasn't a big like flow change in education from high school to university, so it was easier for me to adapt in the American university education.
And I also thought that studying in the United States would be a good thing because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And in France, you have this very strict path of education supérieure. Whereas in America, you have a liberal arts education, which allows you to explore different subjects, different fields. And I discovered anthropology, so it was really good for me. When I arrived in Geneseo, I didn't feel totally lost, and I the first day, one of the first days during international student orientation, I met this French girl, Lucille, who was here in Geneseo for just a year. So that really helped me basically transitioning into this American campus lifestyle, and me and her could relate to, I don't know, French culture and food and whatnot. So that was really good for me. But then she left. But I also met like a lot of American students, and I was like, kind of finding subjects that were interesting me. So academically, I was fine as well. Although I must say, my first semester was a bit difficult because I had no idea. I just took subjects that were pretty hard, and actually I failed like 2 classes, but I found my way in the end. And I think it was also the language barrier. Just studying every single subject in English was a bit difficult for me at first, but with practice and more and more reading and talking English, speaking English, sorry, on the daily basis was really helpful.
And in terms of isolation, coming to an American school was difficult because people have grown up here and they've experienced similar things and know a lot about American culture, obviously. But then I come here and people make jokes and references and I wouldn't get them. So that's one way I felt isolated. And another way is in Japan, when you go to either junior high school or high school, the first day you go into a classroom and you meet 30 people, and that's the same 30 people you're going to see for the rest of your high school career or junior high school career. So no matter what, you had a community or a group of friends that you were always with, so you would never feel isolated. But here, you wouldn't know, like the first day of class or even the first week, you wouldn't know like even one person in every single class. So that's another way how I felt isolated, and that's something that was scary for me. But I got to know a lot of people by like asserting myself and taking initiative, and that's one good skill that I learned here. And last year, when I was a freshman here at Geneseo, I lived in Wayne Hall, and I just sat out in the main lounge and I just spoke to everyone who walked in, and that's how I made good friends here, and I'm glad I did that.
In the beginning, I was a bit lonely because Korean culture is also a big part of me. But since I only knew American people here, like I had the need to fulfill my Korean cultural thing by eating Korean food and by speaking Korean. And as time went and as I like broadened my relationship with other people, like I got to meet other Korean people or other Korean students here. So basically, when I needed to fulfill my Korean cultural aspects, the Korean people were always there for me to speak to and like have dinner together and eat Korean food.
So what I've noticed coming here in American college campus is that students care a lot about having a sense of community and belonging to something. So I think that's why there are fraternities and sororities and so many clubs that the university offers, and extracurricular life, I guess it's called, with sports and everything. And I was always a very individualistic person, so seeing all these groups of people, like everybody walking around in groups, it felt kind of weird because in France I was always had my group of friends, but it wasn't built around like a common interest. It was just like being friends and hanging out. And
I feel that living in Bangladesh, where I was a lot more exposed to American culture. I'm not sure if it could be because they were once colonized by the British at the time, but if you only speak English and you lived in Bangladesh, you can definitely find your way through things because a lot of people speak English and a lot of people address like characters from America and England, especially on like TV shows or music. Because when I used to live there, I would know any particular TV show that would always be going on TV, or music, like a particular songwriter's albums that would come out, and I was very exposed to it. Clothing is definitely very different in Bangladesh because people are a lot more conservative, and it was very important to cover yourself, but that's because it's a very conservative country. Whereas in America, people are a lot more liberal in what they wear and how they dress and what they think. And living in America is very different from living in Bangladesh because definitely I feel very isolated from my culture because I don't know any songwriters' albums that come out. I'm not certain of any TV shows that will come up, like soap operas that I used to love watching back home. Like it's never going on TV here because it's more focused on American culture and more Western cultures as opposed to Eastern cultures. So I feel more isolated here than I was there. Because when I was at home, I would still be aware of like latest releases in songs or movies or any of that sort.
So what I think that differs most from my culture is how people interact. And in Japan, there's so much hierarchy, and even if you're a year older, you have to respect them no matter what. But here in America, I've learned that age doesn't matter, and as you get to know them, you earn their respect and you learn to respect them as well. So you could be friends with the senior, and you wouldn't have to like speak in polite form, which is a Japanese thing we do. And in Japan, in Japanese schools, we know that students aren't necessarily allowed to talk to professors, but here, we get to talk to professors. We go to their office hours and talk about personal stuff, and that's something very different and something that I really like about American universities. And I didn't really experience culture shock because I kind of knew what to expect, because I had already been here for a year when I was a junior in high school, because I was an exchange student back then. But
I never really had to experience culture shock because growing up in an American school exposed to so many American people, I felt that I knew a lot about the American culture and their expectations. Granted that American curriculum and Americans' lifestyle is much different from where I come from with clothing, attire, festivals, and beliefs. It was still somewhat more familiar to me, and I felt that I was very prepared for it. And American culture is so broadcasted in the rest of the world with like TV shows or sitcoms that you get a good grasp of what American culture really is like.